Dala! Welcome back to my channel. So today in this video I wanted to talk to you about options of birthing in Africa. So I recently gave birth to my second child, my daughter. I had a son previously, and for those of you who've been here for a long time, you already know that I was in the US when I was pregnant with my son, and I decided to come to Senegal to give birth because this is where my mom was at the time. And for me, the safest place to have my first birth was close to my mom. My mom had 6 kids, including twins, and both vaginal birth with no issues. So to me, she's the first wisdom that I have access to when I want to give birth. And I left the US and I went straight to Senegal to be with her. And I made a video that I will link somewhere about that experience. I didn't go as in depth as I will go in the series coming up about this particular birth and pregnancy, but that will give you an idea that I'm talking about birth not just from a physical level, but also from a spiritual level, spiritual emotional level. So before that, I wanted to let you know, for those of you who are thinking about moving to Africa or coming back to Africa and wanting to have kids, for me it's a no-brainer. Most people in my family, most women in my family, have lots of kids and are happy with those kids. And I have to say that when I was growing up, it was always great to have all of the cousins, all of the people. There was always people around, basically. And somewhere along the way, I don't remember exactly when, probably when I went for college, this idea that kids are a burden started seeping in. Because if I had to be honest, when I was younger, I always thought that by the time I'm 21, I will be married with my kids, with kids around me. And then, I was off to college, then law school, and it kind of took the back burner. So when I had my son, I was in my 20s, and I wasn't married, I wasn't partnered, and I had just finished law school, and it was very hard. It was very hard. It was a very hard time and a hard lesson to learn. But I was lucky enough that I was grounded enough with support from my family that I was able to go back home. And back home, I mean return and live with my family. Donc, instead of living on my own, I was living with my brothers and sisters. Sometimes my parents will also come. And my child, basically, my son, had the family structure that I could also rest upon. And I think this was invaluable in so many ways. Of course, there are drawbacks that come to that. When you're living with your family, they're going to butt in, you have to have compromise, you have to do things and that. But I can tell you that the negative was largely outweighed by the positive. What I got from that experience was, for me, much more than any inconvenience that I lived through. And also because I told myself that for my next child, I want to be married to have the next child. I want to be with someone that share the same values, that really want the life that I could see myself with. And that we discussed that from the beginning. So when I met my husband, things kind of just aligned. It has just been incredible. We moved to Senegal about 3 years ago now. So and I know Senegal very well. I've done part of my high school back in the days in Senegal, but it was in Dakar. Dakar is the capital of Senegal. But right now we moved in the countryside, if we can say, close to Mbour, and then to Casamance, which is the southern part of Senegal, where there's a lot more forest. Senegal is well known to be in the Teranga, the desert, but there's also part of Senegal that still have forest. Not completely tropical forest as in Cameroon, but nevertheless more vegetation, more. And I think this will come back as people get more conscious about planting trees and having more plants around them and growing more plants around. So, anyways, in Senegal, you basically have three options. And as opposed to, if I was in the US or if I was in Canada giving birth, the main option is going to the hospital. And this is why you see tons of videos about making your hospital bags and things like that and going to the hospital. In order to have your baby, you have to go somewhere, you have to be surrounded by professionals, and that's kind of like the classical route, the classical modern quote-unquote route. Okay, nothing wrong with that, it's just one of the routes that's available. In Canada, you do also have the option for a midwife that can come home. This is very frequent for people who live in the rural area. They are not, if you don't live close to a hospital, most likely you will either move closer for the time being for the birth, or you will have a midwife come to you. In the US also you have this option of midwives. In the US, a little bit more now. In Canada, you have options to have birthing centers, places where you can go to give birth, and in those centers, why women go there is because you have more options. You can give birth in a tub, in the water. You have also usually outside of the hospital, you have better options if you don't want a medicated birth. That's one of the reasons that you will opt for that. So now in Africa, and more particularly I'll talk about the Senegal because this is what I've experienced. And please, if you're from other countries in Africa or other places and I didn't mention anything, please let us know what are the options that are available in your country, and maybe what would be your preference. And I'll tell my preference after I discuss the options here. So in Senegal, you have three options. The first option is the hospital. The hospital, I think the government has worked quite hard to make it affordable for women to just go and give birth. Of course, the resources are limited, so you still get a nice level where you have a midwife, you have midwives present, or you have a gynecologist or the doctor that's there to help you give birth. I didn't experience a birth in the hospital. Also, if you go to the hospital, this is also where there's the most traffic because most women will go to the hospital to give birth, and it is the preference of the government for you to go to the hospital, so that if there's any type of emergency, they have more resources available to them rather than if you were at home. And also because the price is more affordable, it will be one of the preferred options for most women. At least most women living in big cities like Dakar, Ziguinchor, the big cities in the country. The second option is the private clinic. There are private clinics. In most big cities, you have private clinics. And the difference between the hospital and the private clinics is just like you have less. First of all, the price is more expensive. So you will have a curtailed clientele. In some of the private clinics, you can have foreign trained doctors, so doctors who went to train in France and other places, or who are sometimes from foreign nationalities who are coming to work in Senegal. A lot of the clinic in Dakar, some of them have sometimes French citizen or French midwife that are present there that can assist. So there is a higher price. You get also a private room. You get the amenities that you will get that are similar to some of the clinics in Europe. So if you need either the type of emergency, they're usually able to take care of. Also there's less people, so they will take a certain number of patients, so you are kind of like assured that if you go there, you may have your own place to labor and your own private room, basically. Some private clinic may also put double rooms, so you two in a room, depending, which also will impact the cost of the stay there. So it's basically, if you had to classify, the most expensive is the private clinic, and then you have the hospital option. The third option is the home birth. Now, listen loudly, because a home birth is usually, if you go see to the hospital, or if you are already pregnant or want to be pregnant and you're seeing a doctor, this is not an option that they will necessarily volunteer to you. Because here the mentality, most people, they are moving away from giving birth at the home towards going to the hospital for many reasons. And so the government in the protocol is for you to get to the hospital or get to a private clinic, get to a professional. They also have what they call poste de santé, which is like a health clinic, a local health clinic, and sometimes there's a midwife there. But the thought here is that you need access to a health professional, and this health professional is usually part of a structure to avoid that something happens to you. Basically, it's in fear of something bad happening to you. And most of the time it's because sometimes some of the women will not even have a doctor's medical evaluation or anything like that during the pregnancy, and there may be emergency that appear during the birth that could have been prevented from having an ultrasound scan or something like that, especially if you live far from a hospital or a clinic or a poste de santé. So that's why it's very important. Even sometimes resources are very limited at the poste de santé. So if you needed an emergency or C-section, something you will need to be transported to the hospital, it could be very complicated if you live far. Okay, so that's why it's not an option that's given to everyone. And I will say the home birth route is also something that's okay if your doctor clears you. So the doctor will make an evaluation and say, hey, you don't have any complications, you're in great shape, you're in great health. If you want to give birth at home, it's fine. They also will make this evaluation if you live in a place where you live very far from a hospital or a clinic, and you don't have any relative where you could stay closer to your birthing time. They will evaluate you and see, okay, if you are in good health, they could tell you that it may happen that you give birth at home. And sometimes it also happens on its own that you start having your contraction and you don't have the time to get to the hospital because the baby is literally coming out the few minutes after you had the contractions. So there is this practical aspect of it. Before people start just being fearful and having all kind of negative thought, there are women who are able to give birth no matter where they are, in the train or wherever else outside of the hospital, and be fine also. Okay? An emergency like that you cannot plan for. So if your doctor already has cleared you and say, hey, you're not high risk, you're in great shape, you can have this baby anywhere, anytime, and you'll be fine. That's also going to play mentally on you to know that you're going to be okay. And if I may, for thousands of years, women have had babies outside of the hospital, outside of the clinic. Sometimes with a midwife, but sometimes also with just another woman or by themselves. You have even different tribes in tradition that when you're pregnant, you go off on your own, you have the baby, and then you come back to the tribe. You do that on your own, you don't need anyone. So a lot of it is based on your physical health. If you have health complications, stuff like that, sometimes it is a necessity for you to be in the hospital with a C-section because of what you have and the complication that you may have. But if you don't have that and you're in great shape and in great health, there are other options available to you, and the home birth is one of the options. And I actually had a home birth, so I can actually talk to you, and I will make separate videos about the specific options, and I had a home birth in my 40s. So your age alone is not a risk factor. Let me repeat that. Your age alone is not a risk factor. That's why you have to go and consult, and the doctor will do what we call a bilan, blood work and full evaluation of your state of health, and they only can confirm that yes, you clear for this, or you're not clear because for them also, if you have so many different issues or diseases or conditions, it's a risk also on them, because no doctor wants to give birth. They wants to help you give birth and you end up having a complication that could have been prevented, all right? Or that the complication that could have been addressed in the more appropriate environment. And even for me, when I opted to choose the home birth, my doctor was on the same page, saying that if there's any complication in the last week or the last whatever that will prevent me from doing it at home, we'll be gladly go do it at the clinic. So for me, it was never, oh, I must give birth at home. For me, is that my preference would have been to give birth at home. But if it's not, health-wise possible, my goal is always for a healthy baby, healthy mom. Okay? So, but I think it's important to say that this choice is there. And my doctor could not force me to come to the hospital if I didn't want to, or to force me to come to the clinic if I didn't want to. But I will make this decision knowing that I'm capable of, first of all, of giving birth, and also because I don't have any ailment, I don't have anything, and I was clear, and I did the test, and we looked at this, and we looked at that, and everything was fine. Okay? If my baby was in some form of distress, or if there's any other issue with me, a possibility of an issue with me because of XYZ, I will err in cautious and go have the baby at the clinic. And so for the hospital, it's really cheap. I think if you do your follow-up at the hospital, because in my first pregnancy, I did the follow-up at the hospital with the gynecologist, and at the time my mom worked at that same specific hospital as a nurse. So this is why I even went there, because I could go there, see my mom, say hello to my mom, and then walk home. We didn't live that far from the hospital. Okay, but even though I was going there for the follow-up, so all the blood work, all the different things that need to be done was going to be done right there at the hospital where my mom worked. Okay, but even though the doctor was working there, we decided to have for the birth specifically to have it at the clinic, because of the advantages of having a private room, having a private labor room, to be the only one in there. So I don't have to worry about if there's somebody else or anything like that, to have my mom with me in there, and my cousin that was there also helping us. That was beneficial for me. So that was the first options, to have all the follow-up there. But for this particular pregnancy, I decided to, because we were living in two cities, we're living in Casamance and in Bourg, mainly based in Casamance, but we'll have to come back and forth to Bourg. I had one doctor following me in Bourg, in Sali, and another doctor in Ziguinchor, which are the two cities. Okay? And again, both of the doctors, I told them of the options that I preferred, and both of them cleared me. So I didn't have just one opinion saying, okay, you're fine for a home birth. I had two doctors. And the doctor where I was closer to giving birth is the one who had the last say in saying, okay, you can do this at home, or we need to transport you to go to the clinic. Okay, so I had two professionals following me, simply because I was in two different cities. So when the follow-up appointment for the baby will be, I will be with the doctor, and I will bring whatever scan or summaries, whatever prescription he had given us or anything like that. I will bring that to the other doctor for him to be aware of what's going on. And everything went very, very smoothly. I do have to say that before we left Canada, we already knew we wanted more kids, and we already knew that we wanted to do a home birth. Okay, so I already got some books, I already started watching videos about it, and we already looked at how we could have a home birth in Canada. So when the pandemic hit and we decided to come to Senegal, we had the same mindset of we wanted to have a home birth. But before we just jump and say, oh, I want a home birth, we just thought, talking to the doctors first, looking at how things were going on first, okay? And I'll go more deep into that, because I suppose in North America, and even in Europe, it's often said, oh, go to the midwife. The midwives are so knowledgeable. They help you birth and all of that. They open and stuff like that. When I came to Senegal, and this is the second time around, because my first time I just had the doctor, and I didn't really talk to the midwife like that. I just trusted the doctor to have whatever midwife he needed in his team to be there. But this time around, when I came back, the first thing I did, I said, hey, instead of being followed by a gynecologist, let me just go see the midwives. And I was just really, really shocked, because this is not just one midwife. It was in several different clinics, in several different cities. The midwives were really anti-choice, anti-empowerment. They were just like, oh, no, 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 you need to go and give birth in the hospital. It has to be this, it has to be that. There was not really any assessing your level of education about yourself, about your body, about what you wanted, why you wanted it. It was more like, no, this has to be done this way. That's it. If you talk about anything else, that means you're putting your life at risk. And this is really, really, really bad. And, oh, you nearing 40. You shouldn't be wanting to have kids. You should be already in menopause. Really shocking experiences. And I thought it was just me, but I started asking around and other people. The midwife have a very, very bad relationship or reputation, and I don't know what is the problem, because I didn't have time to assess it. All I figured out was telling my husband, okay, we need to go and find a doctor. and very surprisingly, the doctors, both of my doctors, they were not recommended. We just assess. We find this doctor. There was one doctor that we found in Senegal we didn't like, and we went to a different clinic to see. But the first doctor that we found, it was so amazing. It was so nice. He was just like, we came with the apprehension. Well, I want to have a baby. What can you recommend? What's going on here? And stuff like. He was very open. He told us, hey, totally possible. You want to try? Go try. And he said the same thing. Make sure you stay healthy. Make sure you prepare your body for the pregnancy. Great that you thought about coming to a consultation before trying, so we can make some assessment and things like that. And he said, in terms of how you want to give birth, it's completely flexible. You can give birth in the way you want to. So if you want to be on your knees, on your back, or however placement you want. And if you want to give birth at home, I have to clear you for that. But it's totally a possibility based on your condition, your health condition. And I was just blown away. He was eager to answer any questions. He gave us his personal phone number. Great, wonderful. And it wasn't like in Canada or in the US where you have like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, next. You really, he really asked the questions, and he really took his time to answer, and was so diligent. And I don't think it's just the fact that this particular doctor was, young. He seemed young to us, like probably in his 30s. And very knowledgeable also. When I was talking about home birth or position for birthing, he was aware of all of the studies. He was aware of all of the more recent data, the safety about birthing at home, stuff like that. And he had done it before. So that was also the pluses. Both of the doctors that we went to, that we ultimately chose to follow me, had done home birth before. And he was just like, I understand completely. If that's your preference and we can make it work, we'll do that. If not, I can completely also take care of you in my clinic. If there's anything else, everything is here for you to be taken care of. So for me, I was really in good hands with the doctors, and and when I will say, okay, I want something a bit more natural, they will offer me options. So truly, the second doctor who ultimately took care of my home birth, he will say, okay, he's going to take him, and then a team of midwives, with 2 midwives that were present. And basically, he's the one who organized so that I can meet the midwife before the day of the birth, talk to them, ask all my questions. And he's been very patient. And it's the same. He was very open. He was very, he listened very well. You really feel like it's your private medical team, basically. And for that, I have no regrets. I will do a home birth will always be my first preference. As long as I can have more babies and that I'm clear to go with. Also, to me, it was also a personal journey for this baby to come in that way. And I also wanted to make this video and put these 3 different options, because you need to be aware that you do have options. It's not just about, I'm getting my bag to go to the hospital. It's about you taking the time to think about how do you want your baby to come to the world through these different options. And even if you say, okay, I'll ultimately go to the hospital, that's fine too. But just take the time to have that process. if one of the reasons why the clinic, for example, my first birth, I opted for the clinic, is because you also have more control in terms of who visits you, when and how. They are a lot more flexible than in the hospital, where they have more strict guidelines, or there has so many more people to kind of think of. You're less likely also, I mean, your doctor may have other patients that may give birth at the same time as you do. In the clinic, they have less patients, so they can be more concentrated toward you and may be a little bit more present, I think. But other than that, it's like the visitation of the clinic are more flexible. They can give you the extra, 10 minutes or 15 minutes if you need to, with people who are coming to visit you. Where the hospital is going to be a lot more strict, because if they give you 15 minutes to everyone there's going to be a whole bunch of people still at the hospital. While when you are in the private clinic, the nurse just know, okay, I need to go back and check that room in 15 minutes to make sure the visitors are gone. But you have that extra flexibility, and you have that more customization where the nurse actually knows your name and remember your name, because she doesn't have that many people to take care of that particular night or nights, depending on how many times you stayed. For me, when I gave birth at the clinic, I stayed, I think, 3 nights. And that's also, the first night is very, just observation to make sure you're not hemorrhaging or anything like that. Also that the baby is fine, and then that you get your rest. So they really pamper you. Even in the clinic, they pamper you. They give you really good food. Nothing to do. In North America, the hospital food is disgusting. you don't even want to eat when you're at the hospital, or you're visiting somebody at the hospital, they offer you something. Sometimes at the cafeteria, you may find something that looks kind of okay, but most of the time, like, you don't want to eat food at the hospital. You go get something somewhere else at home. But here in the clinic, the food was actually great. That was one thing I was like, oh, this is... At first, I didn't know if it was because I just gave birth and I was just hungry, but the food tasted great. I still remember today that the first meal I had after giving birth to my son was couscous with yassa, couscous, like Algerian couscous, with yassa and chicken. Yassa is an onion sauce. Yeah, so, but it was great. Sorry, a little bit of noise outside. But it was great, and the point is really the difference between the clinic, and the option at home is that at home I knew I didn't have to go anywhere. I knew that my parents who came to visit me can stay out as long as they want in the vicinity. They can still look at the baby, even if I'm taking a nap after giving birth, they can still be there and look at the baby or hold the baby or what have you. And I don't have to go anywhere. So I don't have to move. I'm already at home, so I'm at ease. I'm comfortable, and I can control the light. I can control the environment. I can control if I put on the AC or the fan or anything else. I can control what kind of noise is around the baby at that time. I can control how many people, who's there. And I think those are the bonuses, the pluses. And also, because I spent my pregnancy in that environment, the baby has already been exposed to the bacteria that are present in that environment, and then the baby is going to be fine. The baby is not going to get somebody coming in with some type of disease in the clinic or the hospital bringing that. And you only have to worry about the doctor, and the doctor was there, and then he left quickly after the birth. And the midwife is the one who stayed with me for several hours after the birth to make sure I was okay. And then ultimately after that they left, and we were just us, the cocoon family with the newborn, the new addition. And I think that is a gift that doesn't have a price, basically. For me, ultimately, it's an experience that I cherish so much, to have been able to provide this to my daughter. Another thing I want to leave you with, and this is something I'm probably going to talk again, so those people who don't see this video also get this message, is that it is not true that every time that when human beings come to this world, they come in screaming. My son was born in the clinic and he wasn't screaming. He came in, he was still sleeping. Okay, when he came out, he kept breathing and he kept sleeping. Okay, and I had to ask the doctor, like, is he okay? And the doctor said, yeah, he's breathing, he's just finishing his nap. And this was not like a surprise. They didn't hit him to make him cry or whatever else you see in movies. And the only reason I was shocked is because I had never seen a birth before. I never attended a birth before. And all I saw was the stuff in the movies. Even when my mom was pregnant with my twin sisters, I wasn't in the hospital when she gave birth. So I had no idea what happened. So in the movies, I always see the baby screaming loud when it's born, or them smacking the baby so that the baby can scream and things like that. And so initially I was kind of scared maybe something is happening to him. But the doctor was like, no, he's just finishing his nap. And then, we dressed him and I had him in my arms and he was peacefully napping. And after a few minutes, he actually opened his eyes, he woke up and he, graced us with his presence, his conscious presence. And I think to me, this is a wonderful way to come to this world in a peaceful, calm manner. The doctor at the clinic also had the light that were dimmed, okay? So it wasn't like bright light on him to make sure they can see all that stuff. So I don't know if that played a part, but it was a very peaceful birth, and I was very happy with my son, how he was born and how he was just so peaceful. That's an amazing memory that I have engraved that I will never forget. And so for my daughter to be also born at home, and to also born and go into it really peacefully, it was the kind of the same. She just came in very peacefully, she didn't scream, and she finished her nap. So it's kind of like, you sleep, you fall in you come in this world as if you were awakened from a sleep, like really calmly and slowly and nicely and peacefully. And I think this is one of the gifts that my husband and I, when we looked at our daughter when she was born, and she was just sleeping peacefully, she finished her nap and then she graced her with her presence, was one of the gifts. And that's one of the things for me that was worth it doing it at home. And I will have a whole video about the whole birth, so you can know exactly how it went for me, and everything, like maybe the fear that you think you may have for a home birth, things like that, because I actually went through all that. I prepared myself for the home birth, so I had to face some of those fears and deal with them. But we are very, very pleased to have given that gift to my daughter. And when we told the doctor that was one of the gifts we wanted to give her. We wanted her to come to a safe environment, already to the room and the bed where she will be staying, so that everything will be familiar. Me being there when I'm pregnant, me talking to her, singing to her with the same resonance when she will be born, being able to know what the light will look like, who will be there around her, who will be hugging her and loving up on her, and having just the doctor just enable us to have that vision come true, and without any issues at all. And I think this is something I want to leave that to you, no matter what your ideal birth experience feels like or seems like, have the vision that you have. Put all the chances on your side for it to make happen, but also have the backup where, if it's not happening, that the most essential part is that your child and you are healthy at the end of the day. But if you can have all of that and having it in an environment where you prefer, I will say go for that. Go give birth where you feel most safe. And for me, it was at home. And I hope that those of you who want to have kids and who want to have kids in Africa, that those type of videos, and I hope more people do videos about giving birth and having uncomplicated, great birth stories that you can rely on and that you can watch to prepare for your own birth. And that's what I would recommend if you are pregnant, even if you're not going to do a home birth or you're not going to do a birth in Africa, you're going to do it somewhere else. Watch other birthing stories, good positive birthing stories, or listen to birthing stories, so that it can make you at ease, it can put you at ease with how wonderful it can be. and so that you have those wonderful vibrational thoughts with you as you go through your own birth, and as you go through some of the anxiety or question we may have, because we are going to the unknown, and every pregnancy is different. So every single time you're giving birth is going to be the unknown. Every time you're pregnant, it's going to be the unknown, because it's a unique child. You're unique, and each child is unique as well. So it's going to be a unique experience each time. So yes, and I think this women sharing their birthing stories and positive birthing stories is a great way for you to prepare. And even if you are in your early 20s, or you are younger, or you're not ready yet to have kids, listen to the story so you can know what to expect. And lastly, I will say, even if you don't want to have kids, listen to the stories so you have the knowledge with you. Listen to also stories about women who gave birth, so you also have that knowledge, because it may be handy to you to give it to another woman around your network that needs it. And of course, if you have questions, please leave them below, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.